Morning, all. All right, so before things get started on a very busy day, I wanted to do a 32 player video. Now, I haven't looked at the previous 32 player lists. I've got this organized by division. We got the Pacific, then we've got the Central, then we've got the Atlantic, and then we've got the Metro. So we start with Anaheim and we finish with Washington. And this is just one of those 32 players I'd like to spotlight. I did this about a month ago. I like to do this about once a month. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad I watch as much hockey as I do. Talking about at number one, for Anaheim, and at number one, I guess if you want to put it that way, because he is the number one goaltender in Anaheim, and that's John Gibson. Now, John Gibson was listed as one of the best goalies in the league according to NHL executives about a month ago, right? And a lot of analytical people took umbrage with that and thought that was showing a weird bias towards Gibson that wasn't justified. Gibson really is one of those goaltenders, one of those goaltenders that just plays behind a team that cannot play defense. And so I think that's negatively impacted his numbers. But they've been getting much better over the last few weeks. Anaheim, as Calgary found out last night, in good hands with Gibson. And yeah, I mean, one of the reasons for hope, if you're an Anaheim fan for next year, would be John Gibson and his recent play. Calgary, so before Nikita Zadorov ended up in Calgary, there was a lot of discussions about his play, and there were some that felt he was really overrated. I think it's fit perfect. It's been absolutely perfect for him in Calgary. It's just worked. And the offensive side of his game seems to have gotten better this year, too, which he doesn't really need. He's got the physical side, the defensive side. The offensive output is just a bonus. So, yeah, it's been a really good year for Zadorov, in a year where Calgary hasn't necessarily had the strongest season from everybody. But I don't think there's anybody blaming Zadorov for the fact that Calgary's below the playoff line right now. Edmonton, now, this may be a recent thing as well. So there's a little bit of recency bias in me putting up Warren Fogle. Really, really prominent in their games over the last month. And Fogle, even when he's not producing, still useful player, good bottom six forward. You need good bottom six forwards if you're going to succeed. And I've been really impressed with Fogle in recent weeks. So Fogle goes on the board. For LA, I like LA's defense. I really do. And I'm going to mention Matt Roy. So while I thought about Byfield, I thought, no, I've talked about Byfield recently anyways. Matt Roy is just a really smart, solid, all around defenseman. I talk a lot about Mikey Anderson as well. So I thought I'll mention Matt Roy because always impressed with him. One thing with the Kings, it's rare that I'm watching a Kings game and I say I'm not sure what that defenseman was doing. Where's that puck going? So defensively, they're pretty sound. I mean, Edler's getting a little bit long in the tooth, sure, but you need the veterans on the blue line. You've got Doughty, you've got Edler, and I think Roy's been really, really good for them this year. For San Jose, I'm going to be honest, it was difficult for me to find somebody from San Jose I wanted to talk about here because either they're players we talk about all the time, anyways, or they just haven't had great years. But James Reimer is really an interesting one here because at times he's looked really good, and at times his play's been suspect. And so with Reimer, does San Jose keep him for next year? What's the plan for next season? If San Jose doesn't keep him, where does he end up? He's bounced around the league a lot. And yeah, I mean, does he end up back in Toronto as a, for instance, as maybe as the backup? So yeah, Reimer's an interesting one to me that I wanted to chat a bit about because again, at times, he can make 35 saves on 37 shots, sure. And then the next night he can save 7 out of 11 because why not? But yeah, so Reimer. For Seattle, I've talked about this player a few times. I'm going to mention him again here. Feel free to roll your eyes if you'd like. But Daniel Sprong. Sprong has 16 goals. He's also a plus in the plus minus category. I don't see how he hurts Seattle when he plays, and yet would I be surprised if Sprong, when his contract is up in Seattle, ends up without a contract at all and ends up on a tryout and then scores 20 goals wherever he ends up after Seattle? Not really. I've never quite understood why Sprong falls out of favor as often as he does, but in Seattle he seems to have found a home, and good because I think that it's time for him, and hopefully he can stay in Seattle for the long haul. For Vancouver, so this is coming out of me watching their game live the other night. And just watching Vitaly Kravtsov since he came over, the offensive numbers aren't there in Vancouver either. They are just aren't. I think he has 1 assist in 5 games. But there are glimpses of what Kravtsov might be able to do. And so while yes, there's discussion of whether or not he may end up going back over, playing in the KHL next year, sure, that discussion's out there. I would really like to see what he can do in Vancouver next year. I just watching that game, and there were a couple of moves he showed out there, and I thought, with the right coaching and the right summer program, Kravtsov could absolutely become that top six forward that he never would have been with the New York Rangers, because the Rangers have a lot of top end talent. I really think that's what it was with Kravtsov. He was behind too much top end talent with the New York Rangers. Vegas closing out this division. So it may seem odd for me to put up Shea Theodore. The reason I put Shea Theodore up is I think it was like 3 years ago we were talking about whether or not he was going to win multiple Norris trophies and how great he was and how fantastic he was. I don't hear that nearly as much now. And what's weird is I might be more impressed with Shea Theodore right now than I was 3 or 4 years ago. I think his talent is top notch. If you look at the overall numbers, he's playing better than Pietrangelo. At least I think so. And yeah, I don't think he gets nearly as much attention as he should. So maybe he was overhyped and now he's underhyped. And so somewhere in the middle is the reality of this. But yeah, I'll put Theodore for Vegas. Okay, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. There are no wrong answers in a board like this. There's just none. I like to have these discussions. For the reason that we'll use with the Arizona Coyotes, I just have to check if this is 1T or 2. Again, if I repeat names and if Matthias Michelli's name's been on the board before, I will not apologize because there are players who I feel like don't get much attention. Michelli, as I've said in recaps and I've said in other videos too, he would be far, far more prominent in Calder discussion if he had more goals. Michelli is a very smart player, plays like a veteran. I'm really impressed with him overall. And yeah, I think Arizona's got a good team there. I'm going to do a video on Arizona over the next week or two because Arizona, there's a lot of talk about that's where all the dead cap goes and the team sucks. And I think there's more to Arizona than just that. And I think there's a very gradual building process. It's so gradual that people may not see. And I'm starting to see what the plan may very well be with Arizona in relation to when they're going to get better. So Michelli, I think, is part of that picture. They have very good scouts. For Chicago, this one's going to throw people off a little bit because Chicago hasn't had a lot of players having good years, but I've been impressed with Peter Mrazek. I think Mrazek's had the best year this year he's had in probably 3-4 years. I think he's played well. Sure, his stats are a little bit suspect in places, but he plays behind the defense in Chicago, and he steals them wins. I was honestly a little bit surprised he didn't get moved at the deadline just for that reason alone, because if management really wants to finish last in the league, Mrazek may very well cost them that. He may win enough games that he costs them that spot. So almost stole them the game against Florida yesterday, and I mean they get a point out of that, right? So there's that. We'll see where Chicago ends up finishing and how much Mrazek ends up affecting that. Colorado. Okay, so this guy's only played 27 games. I made sure to write that down because his numbers are great when he's in the lineup. But for Josh Manson, again, playing on that blue line, you've got Makar, you've got Byram. Those guys are going to be the ones that get a lot of attention, rightfully so. But Manson has fit in really, really well. And I think Manson was a really smart pickup. Now, again, he's only played 27 games this year. Staying healthy has been an issue with him. But if he can be healthy through the playoffs, he's going to help their chances of repeating. I thought about putting up Lehkonen, but I think Lehkonen gets a lot of attention. So I thought, no, I'll throw up Manson because I don't think Manson gets as much attention. Dallas, I got a little bit creative with Dallas. Again, as a fan of Dallas, there are players, and I know I've talked about Esa Lindell not long ago. I think it was Lindell I talked about a month ago. So Yanni Hakanpää. Hakanpää really, really good defensively. Throws in points here and there as well. And again, it's one of those situations where Hakanpää, since arriving in Dallas, has just fit. It just works, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And we'll see whether or not Dallas can do anything in the playoffs because they've had a very up and down season, a lot of downs since January. But over the last couple of weeks, things seem to be getting better. Fingers crossed. We'll see. For Minnesota, I know it's Frederick, but nobody calls him Frederick. It's Freddie. And that's Freddie Gaudreau. Whether it's in a shootout, whether it's in overtime, wherever you need a big goal, Freddie Gaudreau is a guy who can provide that for you. On a team where Kirill Kaprizov is, all the offense really does kind of circle around and orbit Kaprizov. But Gaudreau's good, and he gives them some of that secondary scoring. That if Minnesota's going to be successful in the playoffs, stop laughing. If Minnesota's going to be successful in the playoffs, a guy like Freddie Gaudreau is going to be a difference maker for them. If teams are able to shut down Kaprizov and the top guys, and if Gaudreau and others can't break through, then it'll be another short run for Minnesota. Nashville. So this guy got an extension. I apologize for the fact that it didn't end up in a news video, but here we are talking about him now, and that's Kevin Lankinen. Lankinen has given Nashville something that they didn't have after the retirement of Rinne. 2 solid goaltenders. No offense to David Rittich, but I do put Lankinen ahead of Rittich in terms of goaltenders. And the fact that they've extended him tells you that, Nashville's quite happy with their goaltending duo as well. And it gives you hope, if you're a Nashville fan, that should they fall short this year, and all indications are they probably do, that next year could be a better year because they do have the goaltending and defense. And that really is the thing, right? They just need to find a way to score more goals. St. Louis. For St. Louis, I'm going a little bit off the board in this one, and yet I say that ironically because I'm putting the name on the board. But Tyler Tucker, there's something there. There's something there with Tyler Tucker when I watch him play when I'm watching Blues games. It's something that I think next season's going to be really interesting to see where he ends up and what his role ends up being with guys like Tucker, with Neighbors. We'll see what kind of a team St. Louis is building here. But yeah, Tucker's entertaining and energetic, and it's a matter, I think, of the focus side of it. And yeah, I think there's something there. For Winnipeg, so Winnipeg's had their rough stretch lately, but I've been impressed throughout the season with Dylan DeMello. Dylan DeMello might be having the best season of his career right now. It's been impressive to watch. I've been very happy with DeMello's overall play, and he's had a few goals. So finally, DeMello getting on the scoreboard with goals. Now he's on the board here. And so, yeah, one of those underrated players in the NHL, DeMello with the Jets. For Boston, Boston's tough because they get a lot of attention as the top team in the league and just with the record they have. I'm going with Pavel Zacha. Zacha, good year. I did not anticipate Zacha having as strong of a year as he has with Boston. I'd expected maybe 40 points by the end of the year. Now he's well above. So Zacha has been great. I think that having Zacha with Krejci and Pasternak has been a stroke of genius from Don Sweeney to make sure those 3 are there, and then for Jim Montgomery to throw them together, right? This just worked out really, really well for Boston, and we'll see in the playoffs how it goes when they have 2 scoring lines rather than 1. Buffalo. Buffalo's a little bit difficult because, again, I talk about Buffalo quite a bit, but I'm going to put J.J. Peterka's name up here. Peterka, the offensive numbers aren't there yet, but there's a lot with Peterka's game if you watch Buffalo play that leads me to believe that the offense is going to come. He's going to be a very good player for the Buffalo Sabres. I thought about putting up Jack Quinn, and I thought Jack Quinn's had more attention. I want to mention J.J. Peterka because, yeah, he looks like he's going to be regular in the NHL, maybe a 20-goal scorer, although he does have a spot on the ice that he likes to shoot from and get those slappers, and if those start to go in, 20 goals might be a low point for him. He may end up being a 25 or 30 goal scorer. For Detroit, going with another rookie on this one. And there's a reason why, and I think I mentioned Jonathan Berggren. I do remember writing his name on the board recently. But with Berggren, what's impressed me is that his overall game has gotten better over the last month. He's really, whatever drills are running with him, whatever they're teaching him, he's taking it all in. His overall game is improving. So if you're a Detroit fan, you're excited about Berggren, I'm right there with you. I think this kid's going to be really, really good at both ends of the ice. And I think that he's probably a little bit underrated right now. For Florida, Sam Bennett. Now, I've talked about Bennett for years, going back to when he was in Calgary and when he, had a really, really good playoff. His regular season play wasn't necessarily great in Calgary, but the playoffs he was always very good. But Bennett this year in Florida, I think that he's had a better year than he might get credit for as well. And lately he's been playing really, really well. So yeah, I wanted to write Sam Bennett's name up there. Again, some of these teams when I'm going through and I'm trying to find players, it might be a little more difficult with some than others, but yeah, I went with Bennett for Florida. Montreal. So before the deadline, it came out that Kent Hughes was offered a first rounder for Josh Anderson and he turned it down. Notice Josh Anderson's still there. Josh Anderson also has 19 goals. Montreal may very well have had a good plan here. The planning may very well have been simple. We don't know which team made that offer, but if a team offers a first rounder for Josh Anderson and that's a late first round pick, the odds of that late first round pick being up in a couple years probably not great. You're better off keeping Anderson to help shepherd along some of the younger players, and he's a guy who can score goals, and he'll be able to score goals next year. And if they decide to move him, they can probably get more for him this summer. But yeah, I've thought Josh Anderson's had a pretty good year on a team that we had expected to be bad. They've been bad at times. They've been good at others, and they're usually in the game. It is an entertaining style of hockey that they play. Ottawa, again, am I putting up guys I've talked about before? Yeah, probably. But that's okay. I'm old, so that happens a lot. It's probably going to happen with more regularity as I get older. We're just going to have to deal with it and roll with it. Jake Sanderson to the Ottawa Senators. Good, solid rookie season. And this is one of the reasons why when people talk about Calder and how important this is or that is, Calder, it gets overblown a bit. Really, it's how is a player developing. And I don't really care if they're the best of the rookie class or not. And in the case of Jake Sanderson, I think he has just played like a veteran throughout this year. I think he's been really quite good. Now they've added Chikrin. You've still got other defensemen on their way up if you're Ottawa. That blue line looks really, really good for quite some time to come. And Sanderson, I think, I don't think he's going to end up playing as much as Shabbat, but I think he's going to be close when he reaches the top of his play. I think he's going to end up playing a lot of minutes. Again, not Shabbat minutes, but probably pretty close overall. Now for Tampa, we're going with a defenseman as well. Where does Tampa keep finding these players? Nick Perbix steps in. I remember the first game I saw him and I'm like, I don't know who this is. And then by 3 or 4 games later, this guy's pretty darn good. And the offensive numbers are there. The defensive numbers are good. Perbix has been a really solid find, and it's another reason why Tampa Bay just stays at the top. Because they keep finding these guys. They keep finding these players. And it's always very impressive what they're able to do and what they're able to cobble together when we say, aha, now to get under the cap, you have to put bad players in the lineup. How are these guys just as good as the ones you lost? I never heard of this guy. No idea. But Perbix is another example of a player that kind of comes out of nowhere and ends up being pretty darn good. For Toronto, bounce back year. Calle Yarncroke had a down year last year. I've been very happy with how he's played in Toronto. I think he's had a good year. And I think it's hard to fly under the radar in Toronto. I think Yarncroke's probably about as close as you're going to get. I will say this too, though. Justin Hall, the amount of negativity I see thrown around about Hall is ridiculous because defensively Hall's very solid and the defense in Toronto is pretty solid altogether. It's just, I guess there's that player that everybody has to kind of gang up on, and in Toronto's case, it seems to be Hall a lot of the time. But yeah, Yarncroke, really solid season for him thus far. Carolina, had to pick a really long name, didn't I? Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Just double checking to make sure I spelled it right. Yep. So when he was signed to that offer sheet out of Montreal, and that first year came around, and I mean the offense hasn't been there with Kotkaniemi, but it's starting to show up. We're starting to see that with him. Carolina's brought him along very slowly, and it's interesting because it's a different tactic than Montreal, who just threw him into the lineup and to see what he could do. Carolina bringing him along slowly seems to have worked. And yeah, he may end up with 25 goals next season. He may end up being a 50, 60 point player next season. And we don't know yet where that ceiling's going to be with Kotkaniemi, but This year, the offense has been pretty good from him. And really lately too, he's just been very, very good. Columbus, it's hard to find a good story out of Columbus. So many guys having down seasons. But man, when Adam Boqvist is in the lineup, he's been impressive. I think Adam Boqvist right now is playing the best hockey he has in his career. And, we'll see whether or not he can stay healthy next season. Obviously, this season's done for Columbus. But yeah, Boqvist has been one of those guys who's impressed me throughout for the Blue Jackets. And so there he is on the board. New Jersey. I didn't even intend to do this. So you got Pavel Zacha for Boston. I get Eric Haula for New Jersey as well. Haula, good year, bounce back year, I'll say, because coming out of Boston, I don't think it was his best year last year. The goals for Haula, I think he's got 8 so far, but he doesn't need to score the goals. He's got a lot of assists, and he's playing on a team that's really taken off. I've talked about Marino and his role in this team turning it around. I think Halla's been good too, so I figured gotta get him on the board because I've talked about Tatar not that long ago, right? For the Islanders, another recently traded player, another defenseman. I always seem to talk about defensemen with the Islanders. Isn't that weird? It's like they're a defensive team or something. Alexander Romanov. Romanov, the point totals have been good this year. The defense has been good. Hitting as well. I'm still baffled as to why Montreal moved him. And I say that every time, and I'll probably say that for years. So I apologize because I've liked Romanov since he debuted in the NHL. I know Montreal is a good, solid young defense. I just don't know that trading out Romanov. We'll see, right? 3-4 years from now, we'll be able to look back at that trade and say, well, that made sense or that didn't make sense. But I think the Islanders are quite happy with him right now. For the New York Rangers, another defenseman. So a victim of the numbers game before Patrick Kane was brought in and sat on the bench. Braden Schneider. Schneider also demoted, brought up, but all the way through, whenever he's in the lineup, he's very good. So no matter what's going on with him, no matter what's going on with the Rangers, I think Schneider's been quite good for them. A solid young defenseman with a lot of upside. And so I think for the Rangers, definitely a keeper with Braden Schneider. For Philadelphia again, not easy to find a player to talk about positively necessarily. But I'll go with Scott Laughton. Lawton's one of those players that when you look at his overall numbers, doesn't necessarily jump out at you. But when you watch the Philadelphia games, a lot of heart, a lot of effort, a lot of drive when it comes to Laughton. As the team gets better, as their numbers get better, Lawton's numbers probably do as well. And yeah, and I know that happens with a lot of players, but yeah, I've been impressed with Laughton this year. For Pittsburgh, Pierre-Olivier Joseph. Pierre-Olivier Joseph has been... I don't know how many more adjectives I can throw out there, but really playing well on that blue line and on a defense that has been maligned at times. I haven't heard anything negative said about Joseph this season. That being said, I'm sure there's been some negative things said at some point this season because, of course, it's an NHL player, right? But yeah, Joseph, I think, has been absolutely excellent. Really solid. And again, Pittsburgh took their time with him, and now they're being rewarded. His play's been excellent. And to round things out, for Washington, a team below the playoff line. So in the offseason, they signed Darcy Kemper to play goal. Now, while Kemper might be disappointed at the fact the team's below the playoff line, it's not on him. It has not been on him. I think Kemper has had a remarkable season. I would argue he's probably playing better right now than he did in Colorado last year. But because of the fact the team's below the playoff line, they're not necessarily playing all that well. I think that's negatively impacted his numbers a bit. And it's too bad. Because, again, I think Kemper's had a good year. And Washington likely holds on to him through next year. I know he's got a contract, I'm aware. But this summer we could see a ton of movement with players. And so, yeah, I think Kemper's found himself a home in Washington, and he's justified that contract thus far. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And yes, that's the Canucks logo, the native designed logo by, I think it's Ojic's cousin. Gino Wojcik's cousin or nephew. At any rate, I think that logo is absolutely fantastic. Deserves to be on the board. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.